live video. Let's try it over here. This is better. That okay?
Yeah.
That barking? Okay. Otherwise I'm focused on that lamp. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhar Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jiyo Ki Jai Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai Shri Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Gopa Vardhan Dvadashavanatmaka Shri Brajmandala Dham Ki Jai Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kuroti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaura Tishe Namaha Nityanandam Namastubhyam Prema Ananda Pradayane Kalo Kalamashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Samkirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijavaro Yuga Dharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam suruto pangor mama mandamater gati matsarvasva padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpa Drumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Preshtalibhi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambhi Vam Shivata Tatakstitaha Karshan Venu Swanair Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasyacha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptascha Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Numaste Charanara Vindam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad, Paramahansa Ashtatarashata, Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Astatarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and especially to the lotus feet of our Prayojan Tattva Acharya, the first Rupa Nuga Vaishnava in our Rupa Nuga Acharya line, that is Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And he is the author of the book we are studying of his, Sri Vilapa-kusumanjali. And my Dandavat Pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and all of the Vaishnavis. Yeah. Oh. Okay. I forgot to put in the, but I think this is, yeah, verse 14. Yes. So we completed verse 14. Okay. I'm reading verse 14 again. Yadavadi mama kachin manjari rupa purva vraja bhuvi bata netra dvandva deeptim chakara Tadavadi tava vrinda ranya ragye prakamam charana kamala laksha sandidriksha mamabhut. O Vrindavaneshwari, that day when Sri Rupa-Manjari opened my eyes, teaching about you, a great desire to achieve that alta that decorates your feet awakened in my heart. You can repeat. O Vrindavaneshwari, that day when Sri Rupa-Manjari opened my eyes, teaching about you, a great desire to achieve that alta that decorates your feet awakened in my heart. Now we're moving on to text 15. Yada tava sarovaram sarasa bringam sango lasat saroruha kulojvalam madhuravari sampuritam sputat sarasi jakshihe nayana yugma sakshad vabho tadaiva mama lalasa Tadaiva mama lalasa jani tadaiva dasye rase. Okay. We can repeat. Yada tava sarovaram sarasa bringa sangolasat saroruha kulojvalam madhura vari sampuritam sputat sarasi jakshi he nayana yugma sakshad vabho tadaiva mama lalasa jani tavaiva dasye rase. O Devi, whose eyes are as beautiful as two blossoming lotus flowers. When your lake, filled with sweet water and splendid with many blossoming lotus flowers and buzzing bees, appeared before my eyes, I at once began to yearn for the nectar of direct service to you. So, which lake is he talking about? Yes, your lake, he's telling to Srimati Radhika. You can repeat. O Devi, whose eyes are as beautiful as two blossoming lotus flowers. When your lake, filled with sweet water and splendid with many blossoming lotus flowers and buzzing bees, appeared before my eyes, I at once began to yearn for the nectar of direct service to you. Srila Gurudev's commentary, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. The first section is titled Developing Taste Through Grace. Developing taste through grace. In Raga Nuga Bhajan, one's own sadhana is not of so much importance. What did he just say? That in Raga Nuga Bhajan, one's own sadhana is not of so much importance. What does that mean? we're not going to hear. But the mercy of the spiritual master is of so much importance. This depends on two reasons. If there is greed, greed is of two kinds. The first is by previous samskars, from previous life. Huh? We've heard this before already. That greed can come by previous life samskars. So, when one will take birth, the impression is there already. So he will search for a guru who is a Rasik Vaishnava and of the same category that he is himself. The sadhak is lower and the guru is so high in that thing. He has some realizations in this line. So he will accept him as a guru, and now he will follow his line. Nothing opposite of Raganuga Bhakti is there. Nothing opposite of Raganuga Bhakti is there. There are so many bad samskara, but for them, nothing. For them means these persons who have the previous samskars from previous life. He's saying that nothing opposite of Raganuga Bhakti is there. So in there means inside of him. There are so many bad samskara, but for them, for those devotees, nothing. They don't have those bad samskaras. They are clear-hearted. So they go up very clearly. Those who have samskaras, they don't know who is Rasik, who is Siddhantavit, and they have no greed. I think that might be a mistake.
You should say bad samskaras, right?
No. Those who do not, I would say, it says here, those who have samskaras, they don't know who is Rasika, who is Siddhantavit, and they have no greed. Maybe he's referring to bad samskaras, or he's referring to, maybe it should say, those who do not have samskaras.
Yeah.
They don't know who is Rasik, who is Siddhantavit, and they have no greed. Maybe the next sentence is wrong. So the first person has greed from the beginning because from the last birth he has received it. But for the new sadhak, greed is not from the last birth. So he will have to hear all these things and then greed will come. That's why Gurudev came. Only for this. No other reason. He came for this. To let us hear this, to get greed. That's the only reason. And that's why Srila Prabhupada requested him, help my disciples. And that's the help that Srila Prabhupada was talking about. I'm reading that sentence again. The first person has greed from the beginning, because from the last birth he has received it. But for the new sadhak, greed is not from the last birth, so he will have to hear all these things. What things? This. He will have to hear all these things, and then greed will come. And if the guru is not of that kind, then he will have to try from others. Otherwise, he will not be able to enter Rag Anuga Bhakti. So, I mean, Gurudev's English here is a little bit more simple than it became later, because this is in the beginning. But they've done sufficient editing to be able to understand what Gurudev is telling. So he's saying that if the Guru is not of that kind, of which kind? Of the elevated type, who can give Rag Marg Bhakti and give all the impressions and everything, and give the Katha, and help the disciple to develop greed. So if the Guru is not of that kind, then he will have to try from others. What does that mean? That means that that person who doesn't have the samskars from the previous life, and he needs to find that association in this life. That means he will try from others. He'll have to get more than one guru. He'll have to find that guru like that. Otherwise, he will not be able to enter Raganuga Bhakti. So what is that saying? That's saying you cannot enter Raganuga Bhakti without such a guru. That's why Gurudev said in the very first sentence, practically, that in Raganuga Bhajan, one's own sadhana is not of so much importance, but the mercy of the spiritual master is of so much importance. Because what kind of sadhana can most devotees do?
Meager.
Meager. Weak. Right? But the mercy of Guru is not limited by that sadhana. He can give that mercy. It does not depend on that devotee sadhana. You know, there's a very good example of this. I mean, I'll just cite this example because Gurudev himself told this in his own life about his god brother, Ananga Mohan Brahmachari. Remember that story? Ananga Mohan Brahmachari was the personal servant of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. Maybe you've seen his photo. It's in the biography of Param Gurudev. He's sitting right next to Param Gurudev. A very simple, sweet-looking face. So Gurudev told the story of how this servant of Param Gurudev was he had such an intimate, loving relationship with his Guru Maharaj. And he was so serving him with such intimate Vishrambena Gurur Seva, Vishramba, love and devotion. He was always serving his Guru Maharaj. Gurudev said he would observe. His Guru Maharaj is speaking, and suddenly he notices, his lips are getting a little dry. Immediately he brings some water. Like that. So his seva endeared him so deeply to Param Gurudev. And so he contracted tuberculosis. And in those days in India, it was usually most people would die from it. But yet there were certain treatments. And Param Gurudev sent him to, I think, South India to get certain treatments there. And spending lots of money as well for that. And he also assigned this devotee named Gaur Narayan to be with him and to serve that disciple, right? So, and I've heard this story personally from Gurudev, probably 2 or 3 times I've heard him tell this story. So, and even there were some godbrothers and such that were telling Param Gurudev, why are you spending so much money like this? But Param Gurudev was weeping even for this disciple. So then came the day when was his final moments. And Gurudev was there. There was a few other devotees were also there. And Gurudev described at that moment, Ananga Mohan Brahmachari began to call out, "Oh, Radha and Krishna are coming! Radha and Krishna are coming!" And Gurudev said, he was sitting right below the bed and he was saying, "Oh, Prabhu, tell them I also want to go." in this condition, calling out like that, he left his body. Everyone was completely stunned. Because it was very obvious. He had attained perfection. And then they began to discuss, how is this possible? We did not see him doing any special sadhana. He was not like he was chanting 1 lakh every day and like this. But he received the mercy of Param Gurudev. This is the power of the mercy of Guru. And this is the point that Gurudev is making here. That in Raga Nuga Bhajan, your sadhana is not going to determine, but whether or not you can please Guru and receive his mercy. That's the main principle. Now, and so this devotee who doesn't have the previous samskaras from previous life, yes, so he will have to hear all these things. Yes. For the new sadhak, greed is not from the last birth, so he will have to hear all these things, and then greed will come. And if the Guru is not of that kind, then he will have to try from others. Otherwise, he will not be able to enter Raga Nuga Bhakti. Shri Shri Guru Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji. So in this Paramartha line, Paramartha, you know this word, Paramartha? Well, just like Artha. So Artha, you know, Dharma, Artha, Kam, Moksha. Artha, it means like necessities, Artha. Sometimes it's translated economic development like that. But actually, Artha means something that is required, Artha. So Paramartha is the name of the type of faith, the type of Shraddha that one has. Why? Because we are aiming at Paramartha, the supreme benefit. This is the line that we're in. We're not interested in anything worldly of this world. But Paramartha means the ultimate supreme attainment for the jiva. Paramartha. So Paramartik Shraddha is the type of Shraddha that is required. Now Gurudev is talking, he's saying that in this Paramartha line, ultimately, Vaishnava and Guru are the same. Now he's talking about real Vaishnavas. So in this Paramartha line, not in an ordinary, like, Kula Guru, disciplic line of gurus, initiating gurus and so forth, there may be so many that are not actual Sadgurus, because it's just a formal line, a bodily succession, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj puts it. But in this Paramartha line, which means Bhagavat Parampara, ultimately, Vaishnava and Guru are the same. All the Vaishnavas are Guru in this line. All of them. They're perfected, Siddha, Mahapurushas, perfected, exalted personalities. So they're all Guru. Like we see, he's given an example of Shyamananda Prabhu and Narottam Das Thakur and Srinivasacharya. Those three. What they have, they have from Srila Jiva Goswami, even though they have other guru. But they became the Siksha disciples of Srila Jiva Goswami, right? And whatever they have from him. So all Vaishnavas are guru like this. Gurudev is trying to inform his audience who are listening to his class about proper understanding of real Guru Tattva. Because that was lacking, and it's still lacking in this institution. So if anyone has no samskara from his last birth, then he will have to hear. And from hearing or seeing the deities and so forth, by the grace of Krishna or by Guru, he can develop that taste or that greed. We can easily imagine that Raghunath Das Goswami in his last birth, he had that kind of samskara. So he took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami as his gurus. If we think that he has no samskara from last birth, then how did he get this greed? So by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it has been stated that by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, or by hearing the Goswami's books from a Rasik and Bhavuk Bhakta, greed can come. Or by seeing a very beautifully decorated Vigraha, deity of the Lord, one can achieve this greed.
Powerful.
So Raghunath Das Goswami is expressing how he got this greed. In this verse, that's what he's telling. How he got this greed to serve Radhika, to become a dasi of Radhika. He is expressing this verse for both those who have samskaras from past births, and for those who have samskaras from this birth. He's telling for both. Raghunath Das Goswami came from Orissa, Jagannath Puri, because his Guru Swarup Damodar and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and everyone had left this world. Raghunath Das Goswami had decided to leave his body by jumping from Giriraj Govardhan. But Rupa Goswami took him as his younger brother and very lovingly gave his association to Raghunath. Rupa Goswami ordered him, "You should live at Radhakunda and do all the practices that we are doing." He also said to him that Radhakunda is not a mere pond, but is the very Swarup of Srimati Radhika. Srimati Radhika has herself transformed into Radhakunda. And Krishna is Krishna Kunda, Shyamakunda. So Rupa Goswami brought Raghunath Das Goswami there, and he managed everything there. After some time, Sanatana Goswami built a bhajan kutir for him. Sanatana Goswami did. Because he saw tigers coming and going. And he told him to do bhajan at night in the hut. So Raghunath Das Goswami had faith in his guru, in Rupa Goswami, that Radhakunda is surely Srimati Radhika. So he was thinking, I should be here and I should do my practices here. And he was then always crying and rolling on the bank of the Kunda. Rupa Goswami has given so much causeless mercy to Raghunath Das Goswami. The next section is titled Developing Spiritual Greed Through Divine Beauty. The section that we just finished was called Developing Taste Through Grace. So now, this section is developing spiritual greed through divine beauty. Now, one night, he was crying bitterly at the bank of Radhakunda. We can also go and we can see Radhakund at night. At the time of Raghunath Das Goswami, 500 years before, the scenery there was not as beautiful as at the time of Krishna. Only 2 fields were there, and in these 2 paddy fields, there were actually no kundas, just 2 small shallow ponds of water. But Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they knew that Kali Hrada and Gauri Hrada is Shamakund and Radhakund respectively. So sometimes it's called Kali Kate and Gauri Kate, because when Mahaprabhu came there, the local people, Mahaprabhu was searching, where is Shamakund? And he inquired from the locals, and they said, well, there's 2 small ponds over there in the field. And then that's when Mahaprabhu went there and became completely ecstatic. So, but he's also saying here that those 2 small ponds, which were pointed out by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Shamakund and Radhakund, Rupa and Sanatana knew that. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once went there, and he knew that this is Shamakund and this is Radhakund. They later excavated and they expanded Kali Hrad and Gauri Hrad into the Shamakund and Radhakund that we see at present, with all the certain shape and all of that, the stairways. Now Raghunath Das Goswami began to bitterly cry out the name of Radhika. O Radha Kunda, you should show me your Swarup. And then he began to bitterly weep. Now we see there are no Kadamba trees, no Tamal trees. It is almost all dry. On the 4 sides of Radhakund and Shamakund, especially Lalita Kund, we see no trees, no green, no birds, no cuckoos, no peacocks. Only there is a village. That's what it looks to our eyes at present. Towards Govardhan, there are some trees. Then crossing the canal, we see some trees at Giriraj Govardhan. It was almost the same at the time of Raghunath Das Goswami, but there was no village. There was no village there. Like now, there's such a village expanding from Radhakund. So many buildings. It's become very much developed. So, but at that time, there was no village, only some trees. Raghunath Das Goswami, at once, he saw an astonishing sight. What am I seeing? He saw that both Radhakunda and Shamakunda were full of very fragrant lotuses with so many black bees, not only one, thousands and thousands in one group were coming. They were very rasik, searching for honey, these bees were. Searching for what kind of honey? Rasa. Flying here and there to the lotus flowers. And then he saw that taking this rasa of lotus flowers, they became mad. Where to sit and where not to sit, they didn't know, like madmen. A madman can take any sweet thing, and because he is mad, he can take things that aren't good also. Like when Krishna went to Mathura, the gopis are saying that Krishna was like a bee. He was like a bee on fragrant flowers and then on flowers which have no smell. This is how the gopis were saying to Krishna about him going to Mathura. Why? What? You're going there? Those flowers that you're looking for, they have not even any fragrance. Talking about the Mathura Ramanis. Yes. So, like a bee on fragrant flowers, and then on flowers which have no smell, the gopis are saying that Krishna was like this bee. And then he's saying the flowers that have no smell, like the red flower for Devi. There's a certain red flower in India that they use for worshipping Durga Devi. Everyone knows this red flower. It has no smell at all. It just looks very red. So there is no fragrance. And there are also some wild flowers with a very bad smell. Now, when the bees get intoxicated by the rasa, they have no wisdom how to select. Sometimes they sit here, sometimes they sit there, and they fall down. Like Krishna, the gopis are so beautiful, and they have so many divine qualities, but Krishna went to Mathura and sat on the flower of Kubja? This is what the gopis are saying. Madhuravari sampuritam. The water is so sweet and fragrant. The first time I went to Radhakunda, the water was so good and sweet. All the inhabitants of Aridgram used to take water from that kunda. No other means were there for water. Now it is made so deep, about 40, 50 feet deep. No flowers can grow on this deep water. There were waves in both Radhakund and Shamakund, but especially in Radhakund. Why? This is Raghunath Das Goswami. He saw that Krishna and Radha and all Sakhis are playing in the water, which is full of lotus flowers. They were playing water sports and they were splashing each other. This is the vision Raghunath Das Goswami is having. Raghunath Das Goswami saw that the eyes of Srimati Radhika resemble lotuses. And all the lotus flowers are like the eyes of Radhika, and they are all searching for Krishna. So many sweet pastimes were going on there. Seeing this, he became overwhelmed with joy. Then he saw another scene. It had been written by Rupa Goswami or other Goswamis that around Sri Radhakunda there are abundant trees of Kadamba, and all the Kadambas have beautiful flowers and a sweet smell. Their color is like the color of Srimati Radhika. Apart from the Kadamba flowers, 3 other things resemble Srimati Radhika's hue. So now we know the Kadamba flowers is one, and there's 3 more things that resemble her bodily hue, her color. Tadit Suvarna Champaka Pradipta Gora Vigrahe. He's quoting from our Radhakripa Kataksha Stavaraj song. The champak flower is the best. Champak. It is the color of gold and lightning. But because tadit, meaning lightning, the word tadit means lightning, and suvarna, gold, are both hard. In this verse, it's saying tadit, suvarna, champaka, these 3 things. Lightning, suvarna means golden, gold, actual gold, and champak means the champak flower, pradipta gora vigrahe. That her bodily complexion is like these 3 things. So the champak flower is the best. It is the color of gold and lightning. But because tadit, lightning, and suvarna, gold, are both hard, and they are without a smell, and lightning only lasts for a moment and can take your life if it hits you, Therefore, the champak flower is described to be like the complexion of Srimati Radhika. So Rupa Goswami mentioned lightning and gold only because they have something that reminds one of Radhika. But at last, he mentioned that champak is the color of Srimati Radhika. Champak is so beautiful, with a sweet fragrance, so soft, and has the same qualities that Radhika has. The kunda flower is used to describe the teeth of Radhika. A white kunda flower, like her teeth. In the night, these flowers fall to the ground, making it look like a white carpet. The gopis know that this is the sign of dawn approaching, so they hurry back to their homes. Radhika's skirt is red, like the kimsuka. Kimsuka. It is a very reddish color. What is? Radhika's skirt. Very reddish color, but it has no good smell, and not her skirt, but the kimsuka. It doesn't say what the kimsuka is here. Maybe we'll find out. It could be another flower. Okay? So Radhika's skirt is red like the kimsuka. It is a very reddish color, but it has no good smell, and it is full of insects. And if anyone smells that flower, then all the insects will enter in his nose. We should be very far away from these flowers. But but it looks very good in a green background. The flower looks very nice with a green background. Fragrant flowers are lavanga, jati, yuti, madhavi, and vrinda. Bees especially come to the vrinda and to the tulsi. The air is full of the fragrance of all these flowers, glorifying the whole area. On the branches of kadamba trees, peacocks and peahen were sitting, and both were calling out. What do they call out? Keka! Keka! So on the branches of the mango trees, Shuka and Sari were sitting, and they were telling pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Who is Shuka and Sari?
Well, we know who Shuka is. Lord Radharani's parents, Shukadev Goswami.
No, but actually, Shuka actually means parrot.
Yeah.
Yes. So, parrot, and what is Sari? Female parrot. Shuka is the male parrot, and Sari is the female parrot. So, yes, and also the peacocks and the peahens. So on the branches of mango trees, Shuka and Sari were sitting, and they were telling pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And Shuka was glorifying Krishna, and Sari was glorifying Srimati Radhika. At last, they made some settlements between them, and they agreed that both are very beautiful. Yeah, this is also in Gurudev's Braj Mandala Parikrama book, and also this is actually a scene from the Ashtakaliya Leela of Radha and Krishna, particularly their Nishanta Leela. Their like early morning pastimes, end of the night Nishanta Leela, like in our Mangalartik song. Yes. But also at other times, the two parrots, male and female parrots, they get into, these are eternal associates of Radha and Krishna. And they may be in bird bodies, but they can speak beautiful poetry. They can recite in such beautiful, sweet poetry, and they can spontaneously compose prayers in Sanskrit language, glorifying Radha and Krishna, so they compete with one another. And the Shuka is saying, oh, my Krishna is the most beautiful. Then the sari says, no, my Radhika is the most beautiful. And then they give so many reasons. But at last, Gurudev says, where is that? But at last, they made some settlements between them, and they agreed that both are very beautiful. On the pilu tree, pigeons were making their throats so big, and they were calling out as if Kamadev was blowing his shankha, his conch shell. Raghunath Das Goswami also heard the male kokil and the female kokili were singing in the 7th note. So what is a kokil and a kokili?
It must be birds.
Cuckoo birds.
I thought so, I wasn't sure.
They're called cuckoo birds. Kokil.
Kind of sounds like it.
I know. Yes, so, and Raghunath Das Goswami also heard the male kokil and female kokili. They were singing in the 7th note. The wind was blowing very cool and very gently. And during this time, Radha and Krishna and all the Sakhis were playing in Radha Kunda. The Sakhis were surrounding Krishna in the middle of Radha Kunda. And they all began to splash water at the same time on Krishna. But he went under the water and went very far away from them, from there. He came back and he told that only one of them can play with him. Then he selected Srimati. And they began to both splash water at each other. Krishna splashed so much water that it went in the eyes of Srimati Radhika, and she began to rebuke Krishna. Then Rati Manjari, who is Raghunath in his outer shape, took the side of Srimati Radhika. Who took Radhika's side? Rati Manjari. And then also began to splash water in the eyes of Krishna. And when she took some water and wanted to splash Krishna, then suddenly she saw no Krishna. Who? Rati Manjari saw no Krishna. Again and again we're hearing this, each verse, that she in his internal form is right in the midst of this and then suddenly disappears. Can you imagine? Then he's rolling on the ground and weeping and weeping. So when she took some water, Rati Manjari, and wanted to splash Krishna, then suddenly she saw no Krishna, no Radhika, no beautiful scenery. Then, weeping, Raghunath Das Goswami said, "How did my greed come? How did my greed come? It came when I saw that beautiful scenery at Radha Kunda." That's the verse that we just read. Daily we see Radha Kunda and we take bath there, but no greed comes. So it seems that he saw this scene one day by the grace of Radha Kunda and by hearing the glorification of Radha Kund from Rupa Goswami. And then he said, like in the verse he's saying, from that very day, when I saw Radha Kunda, a greed came in my heart to become a Palya Dasi of Srimati Radhika. From that day. Nayana Yugma Sakshad Vabho. When I saw this scenery and Radha and Krishna playing in Radha Kunda, then Tadaiva, from that very day, my greed came out. So now, this final section of this verse, purport, is titled Developing Greed Through Hearing. So the first section was titled Developing Greed Through Grace. And then the second, Developing Spiritual Greed Through Divine Beauty. The whole description of the scene of this divine beauty of Radha Kund. See, one point is that, like Gurudev is describing in the purport, how we may go there and we see the outward manifestation of Radha Kund. There are barely any trees, they're like this. But the manifestation of Radha Kunda, which is the eternal Radha Kunda, which is right there, but it's covered, it can be revealed. Raghunath Das Goswami had that vision. We should understand that when the 6 Goswamis, when they were wandering around Braj, right? And like described in the Sad Goswami Ashtakam, Hey Radhe, Vraja Devike, they're calling around everywhere. Where are you? Where are you? Are you here? Are you there? Are you on the banks of Radha Kunda? They're actually seeing these pastimes, like Raghunath Das Goswami. He was directly seeing and witnessing these pastimes. So the 6 Goswamis, all were on that level. And they went wandering all over Braj Mandala and discovering the actual pastimes that took place in those very places by divine vision. And then they wrote them. Otherwise we would not know. That's how important are the 6 Goswamis, empowered by Mahaprabhu to reveal. That's why we pray every night. We sing this song, Hari Harai Nama Krishna Yadavai Nama. And there it's saying, Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilovas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korilo Prakash. Those 6 Goswamis went to Braj, and now they live there. Brajvas. Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korilo Prakash. And what did they do? They manifested. Prakash means to manifest, right? What did they manifest? Radha Krishna Nitya Lila. In their books. They're manifesting the actual pastimes of Radha and Krishna in detail, every single word, what they're envisioning. So this is not just some poet who's trying to make pretty sounding verses. No. These are the eternal associates of the Lord who have been sent here by Srimati Radhika from the spiritual world. They're manjaris, all of them. And they've been sent here to give this line and demonstrate it for all the future generations of Vaishnavas. So how important are the 6 Goswamis? So now, developing greed through hearing. This is the last 3 paragraphs. By hearing, greed will come. By hearing, greed will come. Raghunath Das Goswami heard so many pastimes of Radha and Krishna from Rupa Goswami. So he has greed. But now he is explaining how his second type of greed came. So he already had heard so many pastimes from Rupa Goswami, and greed is there. But Gurudev is saying now his second type of greed came. By seeing a very beautiful deity or anything that is very beautiful, a greed can come. So here, Raghunath Das Goswami is saying, the very day of Radha Kund, my greed came out. Tadaiva mama lalasa jananitai tavaiva dasye rase. I saw there Radha and Krishna and all the Sakhis playing and the beautiful scenery of Radha Kund with so many trees, flowers, and birds. And from that very day, a greed came in my heart, that I will only be a Palyadasi of Radhika. I want nothing else. This is his permanent greed. So when he came back to his senses, he began to weep and to roll on the ground, praying, "Oh, you should have mercy upon me, that I will again see it, and I will be engaged in that kind of service." It is for certain that when someone will hear the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and especially of the gopis, then a greed can come. I'm reading that sentence again. It is for certain, not maybe, right? It is for certain that when someone will hear the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and especially of the gopis, then a greed can come.
And hearing is not just like sitting and listening.
Of course. Our capacity to hear, because your question is that hearing, what kind of hearing is that? Yeah. Everything is what kind of seva, what kind of spiritual activity, what is your deep mood? Everything is depending on that. But we want that one day that mood will come. That's what we're hoping. This is our whole bhajan life. As long as this body we have. Yes. There has to be that kind of strong desire. And as we heard in the beginning of the purport, also samskaras. Some persons will hear, but they don't have necessary samskaras even in this life. But something will come for those persons when they're hearing. It's like Gurudev toured the entire world. Devotees of all calibers, they came to hear from him, right? But all were benefited, especially those who have very strong Guru Nishta. If you have that, everything will come. It will take some time when Krishna desires, but this is what we need. We need to develop strong Guru Nishta. And those impressions then, they will be implanted in our hearts. Like Gurudev has told many times, he said, we are sitting and we are speaking and there are, a few hundred devotees. But out of those few hundreds of devotees, there may be one or two that actually have the necessary samskaras. But for those who don't, which is the majority, they will develop those samskaras by hearing. But not just by hearing. That hearing has to be combined with a tremendous amount of surrender, sharanagati, service mood, Guru Nishta. Everything has to be there. And then when we hear, yes, it can come. But if it's not there at the present time, we should aspire that one day it can be. It can come, because then we can weep. Someday we'll actually be able to weep and say, I am so unfortunate. I have no proper qualifications. And some pity and mercy will come to us from that. But if we don't endeavor, we can't artificially weep like that. This is not possible. It is not possible to artificially weep like that. We have to have some realization, and that realization is awarded when we try to surrender, when we give ourself, you see, self-giving, I always like to repeat that statement because Srila Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj would use it so often. Self-giving means Atma Nivedanam. That's a direct translation of the word Atma Nivedanam, giving your very self. Like an offering in your hands, offering your very self. Gurudev told about his own self, that when he came to his Guru Maharaj, do you remember how he described that? Remember the words that he used?
He told his Guru Maharaj that all the love I have for my family, I'm giving it to you.
Yes. I'm taking all of whatever attachments I have in my hands and presenting it at your lotus feet. I am yours. Okay? So this is not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do. But we're practicing. We're hoping. We're praying. If that kind of mood is not there, then our sadhana, not so much potency. We get benefit, but not so much potency. But when that is combined with surrender, then we can begin to enter. In the entrance way. Because, like, the description of Sharanagati is the doorway to enter the house of bhakti, the palace of bhakti. So that entryway is granted. It's granted through the process of Sharanagati. We have to earn that. It's not that it's going to come cheaply. That's the problem. So, in this way, sincerity is the main principle. Always being truthful and honest and sincere, but not being weak. How many times did Gurudev say, don't be weak? So many times. And that means keep on endeavoring, always. Never, never, never give up. Never give up. Always keep on, from day to day to day to day. And we can calculate how many days approximately we may have if we live a little bit long in this body. But they're dwindling away, all these days. They're dwindling away. And we don't know. Nobody knows how many days. Whether we're in our 20s or in our 70s. Nobody knows how long they have. No one knows. So that's what Mahaprabhu was preaching in that song, Udila Arana. We went through that in a class one day. About how Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, and he's going from village to village, and he's saying, you're wasting your days. With every rising and setting of the sun, another day is lost. You've gotten this rare human form, but you don't care for it. You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies. And you're not serving the Lord of the heart. But if you are in this condition, then at the time of death, you will fall into great shame. You'll have to. You'll have to feel like that. Feel like, what's the word? Just useless. I wasted my life. I didn't do such and such. But even that is good. Even if we can feel that, it's very good, because then Krishna will bring you in next life and you'll get a very good chance. Krishna is always there mercifully for those who make some slight, even a slight endeavor in the pathway of yoga. I was rereading that in the Bhagavad Gita recently, Gurudev's Gita. Very beautiful description there. Krishna will take care of us. But we don't want to try to be a cheater, and we don't want to be insincere, because insincerity, then we'll have to be punished until we become truthful and honest and sincere, and we actually, no more cheating. Cheating means I'm cheating myself, ultimately, but that's what duplicity is, this kutinati, hypocrisy and duplicity like this. We shouldn't be. The Vaishnava, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was asked the question, how can we recognize a Vaishnava? How can we recognize? And then he said, because saralata, Saralata means simplicity. The character and the qualities of a Vaishnava is that what you see on the outside is the same in the inside, like this. Not that they're posing one way, but really they're another. All of that is deceitfulness. So these are the things that Raghunath Das Goswami points out in the Manasiksha. That the mind is full of all these things. So we will have to wage war. That's what Srila Prabhupada said in his Bhagavad Gita, right? Taking to the path of Krishna consciousness is to declare war on what? Yes, the material energy. Yes. So, I'm just finishing these last sentences. So, it is for certain that when someone will hear the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and especially of the gopis, then a greed can come. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Ragvartma Chandrika, these things have been clearly stated. A Raganuga devotee should follow Krishna and his associates, but his inclination should be towards Srimati Radhika or her Palyadasis, not to Krishna. How the gopis are serving Radhika, this mood should be there. Not of the other Sakis, but of the Prana Sakis and the Nitya Sakis. Those are Manjari, Prana Sakis and Nitya Sakis. Their mood should be there. Otherwise, we cannot enter. Otherwise, we cannot enter. We'll have to come to that. We should at least know that we'll have to come to that. Because Krishna is Rasik, so he is Vishay. We want the mood of Ashray. Vishay means the object of prema. He's the Vishay, because he's full of ras. But we want the mood of the Ashray. Who is that? Srimati Radhika, the pure devotee. So we should choose Ashray. Therefore, he is saying in this verse, Lala Sajani Tadaiva Dasye Rase. At the end of the verse, Tadaiva Dasye Rase. So I'm reading the verse one more time. Yada tava sarovaram sarasabringa sangola sat suroruha kulojvalam madhuru vari sampuritam sputat sarasi jakshi he nayana yugma sakshad vabo tadaiva mamalala sajani tavaiva dasye rase. Tavaiva dasye rase. O Devi, whose eyes are as beautiful as two blossoming lotus flowers, when your lake, filled with sweet water and splendid with many blossoming lotus flowers and buzzing bees, appeared before my eyes, I at once began to yearn for the nectar of direct service to you. You can repeat. O Devi, whose eyes are as beautiful as two blossoming lotus flowers.
Whose eyes are as beautiful as two blossoming lotus flowers.
When your lake, filled with sweet water, and splendid with many blossoming lotus flowers, and buzzing bees, appeared before my eyes, I at once began to yearn for the nectar of direct service to you. So now we heard about how he saw Radha Kunda actual, and then began weeping and rolling on the ground for service to Srimati Radhika.
So that means his greed is coming out.
Yes, and he admitted that. That's at the end of the purport. The two, first he had some greed, but now he had this greed. Understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Vihari Jiyo Ki Jai Shri Vilapa-kusumanjali Ki Jai Shri Raghunath Das Goswami Pad Ki Jai Shri Rupa Goswami Pad Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo